Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. This is Rob Aubrey. I am your host of today's podcast uh, uh, called Want More Leads, and this is sponsored by Aubrey Home Loans. And today we have a special guest. His name is Tyler Jensen. So Tyler is the founder of the Top Performer Group. It's a coaching business, and they focus on getting businesses breaking through the three complacency models. I'm actually excited to hear about that myself, right? Who doesn't know about that? And Tyler's been coaching in different capacities for the last decade. So, welcome to the show, Tyler, and thanks for coming.
Rob, thank you for having me and thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, of course.
I'm excited to be here. And like Rob said, we love helping business owners break through those barriers, really achieve their full potential and a life of abundance through our four pillars of top performance.
Right. So, tell us, so Tyler, how did you start out? How did you get into coaching?
Coaching, I feel, Rob, has always been a passion of mine. I really think it stems all the way back to my childhood, where I was always the one trying to share my knowledge, whether
Right.
good or bad.
Right.
And that really kind of stemmed from I loved helping people. I just loved, offering something that I could to better their situation.
Okay.
I think it stemmed a lot from my parents. Both of my parents were in education. My dad worked at a university his entire career. My mom was a teacher at a university, high school, junior high. So I always kind of had that passion of, I guess, teaching and coaching and helping others. And I think the real joy came, Rob, when I actually served a 2 year church mission and just teaching people about God and Christ. Talk about the hardest sell.
Right.
Knocking on somebody's door and says, I have a message about Jesus. But being able to share something that I loved and seeing it bless somebody else's life, I felt a lot of joy from that. Felt a lot of passion. So that's kind of where my career started. I started my career as a corporate trainer for a university. After that, I opened an insurance agency. Don't know where that transition happened, but everybody lands into insurance in some form.
Right.
Did that for a few years and then became a coach and a trainer for insurance agents for several years. And then from there, it's evolved and we launched this coaching platform about 7 months ago for all business owners. And since then, it's been incredible helping other businesses expand their business.
Got it. So, so you said you started coaching at the university, and you mentioned on before we started the show that you'd involved in different types of coaching. So tell us a little more about that.
Yeah. So the first kind of avenue was when I was a corporate trainer at Weber State University. So I trained faculty and staff on Adobe and Microsoft products. So that
Got it.
was one of the first kind of forms that we'd even outsource the training. So I'd train other business owners in the community of Ogden as well as locally. So the process of creating platforms was a big aspect of my job there is creating online curriculum for the university, creating live coaching for individuals to come actually attend, and then coaching as a business owner. So when I opened up an insurance agency and ran that for a number of years, I had grown my agency. We had 4 employees, and I always took the avenue of I'm always educating clients. That's what's doing what's best is you're educating clients so they can make an informed decision. So I always viewed myself as an educator in that capacity as a business owner. And then the other avenue is when I became a corporate trainer for the insurance company. So I trained over 200 of their agents over
Got it.
several years and was in the nitty gritties of helping them build their agency for the first 4 years. So did a lot of mentorship one on one with those individuals building their businesses. And that's kind of what led me. So it was about 7 years of research that I took and adapted all my own frameworks into this coaching program that we have here.
Got it. And what do you, and the name of your company is Top Performer Group? Is that it?
Yeah, the Top Performance Group.
Oh, Top Performance. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
So tell us, so how many people, is it just yourself running it right now? Or do you have other people working with you?
So I have independent contractors that work
Oh, you broke up
going
you have independent contractors that work with you?
correct. Yep.
I
So
see.
my
And
wife
they're
and I are the owners of the company,
right.
and then we have independent contractors that we do for outreach, video production, um,
Got it.
back end work as well to free up our
Right.
space to coach and to speak. And
Sure. Yeah, do what you do, you know.
yep,
You know. So and you said you focus on businesses that break through what you call the three complacency models. And I'm like, gosh, I never thought about complacency, being a model, but I mean, it really is. It's just a model behavior, you know. So tell us more about that.
yes, the three complacency models is our visual representation of why business owners get stuck. So, studying top performance over several years, I pinpoint four pillars that help people get to top performance. But then there's three opposites that keep them from that as well.
Got
And
it.
that's the three complacency models. So, the biggest factor of business owners not achieving top performance on a regular basis, I say regular basis because we've all experienced top performance in one form or another, different avenues in our life. But a continuous effort of top performance gets halted by one of these three complacency models.
Okay.
So the first model, Rob, is complacently busy.
Oh
We
yeah.
describe this as the business owner that essentially is running by chaos.
Right.
Every day they're putting out fires, their priorities are diluted, they're going all over the place, feeling like they have to manage everything.
Right.
And when you run by chaos, even in personal life, if your home life is chaotic, right? There's different avenues that halt you there. But in the business, when you have no system, no consistent system means no consistent results.
Right.
So you go throughout the day having wins, having losses, having successes, having failures. But at the end of the day, the business was complacent. There's no true growth and development on the business that allowed it to continue to develop.
So 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 describe the complacency model of busyness, right?
Yep.
And we all fall into that trap because, and I call it the rocking chair syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard that expression.
I
So
have
what does
not.
a rocking chair do? It moves a lot, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Yes.
you know. So, and we all tend to do that. And if you're a new startup, it's always a challenge because you're wearing many hats. And a lot of times in the beginning, you just don't have the cash flow to bring on other people. But on the other side of that coin, you can't afford not to bring on somebody. So it's a real dilemma, and you just have to grind and just know that you're going to be putting in, 20-hour days until you get the cash flow to hire somebody. So, so what are the four pillars? Tell us about those, the four pillars.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be easier to understand the pillars. I mean, the opposites if we know what the first part is, right?
Correct. The four pillars, the first one, Rob, is optimism. So
Got
this
it.
is the mindset, optimism. The second is systems. The third is power. And the fourth is focus. So as we integrate these, the first pillar that business owners need to adapt is the correct mindset. So optimism, the Latin word, that's one thing you learn about me, Rob, is I'm a huge nerd the more you talk to me.
Right.
And I
Me
love
too,
the
trust me.
study of words. So etymology is one thing that I've really found enlightening because the word optimism is a Latin word which means best. So it doesn't mean positive, it doesn't mean happy, it simply means best.
Right. Okay.
So when we look at that in different capacities, and you ask yourself, are we doing the best thing for the client? Am I
Right.
becoming the best version of myself? Am I giving the best experiences? Am I offering the best products? How can I do what's best? When I have setbacks, am I responding with the best attitude? Am I putting the best systems into place? So we're having this constant mindset of how can this be the best thing for the future?
Right.
That leads us to the second pillar. So to get over our first complacency model, we have to change perspective, because when business owners get stuck in that cycle of feeling like, oh, I have these 20-hour days, like you mentioned, how can I afford to hire an employee? Well, what is best for your future? Is it best for your future to sit there and do 20 hours a day for the next 20 years? Or is it best to say, okay, how could we put a system in place, an employee that can help the business the best?
Right.
Right? We're shifting that perspective. And to get over chaos is that second pillar, it's systems. When
Right.
you have systems and you build systems, now you're getting consistent results.
Right. I always say systems, like, you know, the best example of systems, if you will, in my opinion, is, or that I like to give, is let's take McDonald's, right? Now, I'm not a advocate of their food. However, from a business model, they're arguably one of the most successful corporations ever, right?
Yeah.
And so run by teenagers that don't want to work. So that's the power of systems, right? That it
Yes,
became so powerful because of their systems, you know. So that to me, that's the best example of how powerful systems really are.
it is. And we honestly, we live in a world of systems, whether we want to or not. I love kind of a story when I was becoming a new dad. This was when our first daughter was about to be born. And my parents bought us a brand new crib. Super great gift. And so we were so excited. I laid it out on the baby's floor. I had my wrenches, I had my screwdrivers, and I open up the box, right? And right there in front of me is the beautiful instruction manual.
Right.
And so I did what any new dad would do. I read it, the first page, and then toss off the side,
Right.
right?
I looked at the finished product and said, ah,
I
I'm a
got it.
guy. Yeah, I'm a guy.
And I started to assemble this crib, and I got all four sides on, and I was like, I'm doing great. And I went to put the top rail on, and the last screws that I had just sat there and spin. They were all too short. And so here I was completely frustrated. I was like, I
Right.
can't even put together a crib. And then my sensible wife comes behind me and she hands me the instruction manual
Right.
and then walks away. And looked at it, realized my error, followed the system picture by picture, and I assembled the crib.
Voila.
Would you know?
Right.
And
Now I'm old enough to know that by now, right?
right,
Where the first
exactly.
thing I do is I get the inventory page and I make sure I have everything because I'm not even starting unless I know I have everything.
Yep. That's the beauty of systems. We live in a world of systems, yet business owners think they can run a business without that employee system,
Right.
right? And that's the thing that we need to create. When you start hiring, oftentimes business owners get frustrated with hiring is because they hire somebody into their chaos.
Right.
And then that employee becomes so overwhelmed that one, they don't like their job. They're going to leave you in 3 months, or
Right.
they're going to try to grind because you probably are paying them nicely and they don't have to do much because they're just living in this chaotic world.
Right.
And so that's lower productivity.
And
So as
usually
you
that
establish,
they're usually hiring relief. They're not hiring part of the system.
correct, correct.
Yeah.
So establishing those systems for your employees to come into. So we always take new business owners and we walk them through a process prior to hiring to say, okay, what is this employee's roles?
Right.
From the tasks that you want them to accomplish, do you have a system or a process in place that they can be successful from day one? And
Right.
without doing so, you need to work on your business and create those systems so you have somebody that can be successful as soon as you hire them.
Right.
So that's the power of those systems that's going to create those consistent results.
Yeah. What I always taught was, where are you going to be 5, 10 years from now? Let's create a flow chart of what your organization looks like. You're the CEO, and in the real estate and mortgage space, you have, you have basically sales and operations like any business.
Yeah.
And so, and so let's just take real estate. So you have, the lead, you have lead administrator in the middle, and then one side and the other, you have lead buyers and then lead sellers agents. And then underneath them, you have a few, like you can have multiple buyers agents, you can have a showing agent under administration, you can have a transaction coordinator, just all kinds of different administrative tasks. I said, build that flow chart out as if you're 10 years and you got your company up and running. And then right now, I need you to put your name on every one of them. And what every one of those is supposed to do. And then when you hire somebody, what hire would give you the biggest bang for the buck? That's kind of sounds like you're doing the same thing.
Very similar. Yeah. I love that concept of writing your name on it. Like the Mike Lee Gerber's, the E-Myth. I think he talks
Oh
about
yeah,
that
E-Myth. Yeah.
principle.
Oh yeah. Right.
I love that because it's very visual for people to be like, I have to sign off on all these tasks, right?
Right.
And it's that motivation to say, okay, I need to create this position. I need to hire somebody so I can take my name off that. So
Well, right.
I love
Well, and it
that.
makes it easier to hire somebody because, they show up and they're like, what do you want me to do? And you're like, well, I don't know. I was hoping you'd tell me. I
Yeah.
mean, what did Steve Jobs say? Steve Jobs says, I didn't hire people to tell them what to do. I hired people to tell me what to do. He says, you're hiring talent, you know. So anyway, that's how you grow a big organization. But yeah, so put your name on every job. I mean, it is it kind of, but then you know what to hire, because if I hire somebody part-time, well, I can give them this task and this task, maybe.
Yep.
So, so you
So
got
that's the
optimism and systems, and what's your
and
third one?
systems. So the third one is power. And so this is ultimately how we overcome the second complacency model. Because now people, when business owners have systems and they're starting to see more successes, what really impacts individuals is when they have failures.
Right.
And that induces our second complacency model. Because when things don't work and we have setbacks, we have trials, we have those items, psychologically speaking, negative events have 4 times the impact as one positive.
Yeah, that's right.
And our brain does that just to keep us safe. That's just how it's
Right.
wired. It's meant to keep us safe. So, Rob, when you're making a phone call, or audience members, when you're making a phone call and somebody yells at you, your brain's going to remember that.
Right.
And then the next time you have to pick up that phone to call somebody, your brain's going to trigger that and induce fear
Right.
and tell you, Rob, don't make that call again. That was scary last time. I'm going to keep you safe. And so you're going to fall into a state of complacency. And so it's that cycle of going from failure to fear to complacency.
Right.
And it's our natural tendency towards pessimism, towards those negative experiences we have throughout the day.
Have you ever heard of Matthew Ferry?
I've heard of Matthew Ferry, yes.
He's a
Remind
coach.
me some of his books, though.
So I don't know about his books. I mean,
Okay.
he has them, but he was one of the sons of Mike Ferry. Mike Ferry is a famous, like one of the largest real estate coaching organizations out there. So he had two sons, Matt and Tom. So Matt kind of went off. Matt and Tom, they both went out on their own. But he used to teach a thing, and what he used to call, was your mind, right?
Yep.
Your mind taking in. But he said your mind is like a drunk monkey. He says, what does a drunk monkey do? He says they just throw crap all over the place. And that's what your mind does. It just throws crap all over the place. And like you get a guy, that was not nice to you on the phone, and so you can't relate that everybody else is that way. Most, and I've made probably thousands of cold calls in my lifetime. And I found that most people are nice people.
Yeah.
You might catch them at a bad time, you know, and but I've learned. So the way I taught myself was that I was never rejected. And people say, well, how's that possible? And I'm like, well, the reason why it's possible is because in order to work with me, you have to want to work with me. So if you don't want to work with me, therefore I reject you.
Yeah.
And that kept me from being rejected. So,
I love that because it's that simple shift of the mind.
yeah,
So to overcome the second complacency is, viewing things as failures and having negativity permeate our day. I'm sure
right,
you've had this experience where you come home from work and your spouse asks you, how did your day go? And the first thing that comes to your mind is all the negative things,
right, right.
right? To avoid that, it
Oh, yeah,
has to
by the
come
way, I
into
sold
those
a
two
house,
pillars,
You
right?
tell them about all the bad things, but you forgot to mention you sold a house.
Exactly. I forgot to mention, this big,
Right,
huge thing. It's all these little things just because naturally it has those greater impacts. We do
right,
remember it more. So we have to train the mind, right,
right,
towards the best, right? It's going into that first pillar of, we could say positivity, right? Because that could be the best attitude we need to take towards these. But it's shifting everything that could be viewed as a failure into an opportunity to learn and grow. So I love like
right,
your shift where you said, okay, I'm just going to shift that perspective of they didn't reject me, I rejected them.
right.
And that's how we increase our power. So that's the third pillar is power. Now, I'm sure everybody can complete this quote, knowledge is
Yeah,
power,
power, right,
right? Francis Bacon wrote in the 1500s. I always say it's not accurate in today's world
right,
because if knowledge was power, wouldn't AI be the most powerful thing in the world?
right. Wouldn't academia be the most powerful people?
Right?
So if I had to guess, so action would be the most powerful thing, right?
Yes. So looking at the words is the correct use and action of knowledge.
So you broke up a little bit. Say that again.
Oh, sorry. So wisdom,
Oh,
its
wisdom.
definition
Right.
means the correct use and application of knowledge.
The correct use and application. That's interesting. Yeah.
So a more correct phrase in today's world is wisdom is power.
Right.
Because individuals, you could listen to this podcast all day and you're gaining knowledge. But
Right.
if you don't take that and apply it
Right.
back into your systems, it's just potential power.
It's just information at that point.
It is. So taking everything you learn, so as viewing things as failure, I always say there's no such thing as failure. There's only opportunities to learn and grow.
Right.
So making that mindset shift and then establishing a culture within your business where there are no failures. Your employees don't have to feel failure. They just experience learning.
Right.
And so we're creating a cycle of continuous discovery to say, okay, everything that doesn't work is a positive because we're going to apply that back in the system so the next time it's going to be more successful.
Right.
And so power comes from two avenues, right? It comes from learning, it comes from education. But as we increase our power, that also increases our ability to serve our clients. The more knowledge we gain, the more knowledge you gain about real estate, the better you can serve your client and the better they can perceive that. So power is essentially it's the process of which your systems have true power. Because you could go into a sales system and somebody could perceive that you don't know very much,
Right.
right? But as you increase your knowledge and your ability to apply, your clients can perceive that as well. And they can perceive that value that you're giving them simply from the way you communicate and the way you have the
Right.
systems that they get to experience. So that's how you overcome that second complacency model is changing to increase your power and develop that correct mindset.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's the way I've always. The other thing we used to do, technique we would do with to deal with the rejection on when you're cold calling. I mean, It's more no's than yeses, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I always say it's not, if you got low self-esteem, probably not a good idea. And so, but the power of knowing your numbers, right, so we would know our numbers. We would know how many no's we had to have to take a yes. And so and then we would divide them out by dollars, right? So, and this was years ago, let's say a house was 200,000, and the commission was 3%, and I made $6,000, right?
Yeah.
So, let's say you had to take, 99 no's for one yes. And so we had to so you take 6,000, right? You always start with the money, 6,000 divide by 99. So each no was worth $60. And so when somebody would say no, when we would hang up the phone and say, thank you for the $60.
Yep.
So we actually made it a positive experience where, because you're like, hey, I just made $60.
Yes. And that's what it takes. Oftentimes it's those simple things of just
Right,
how do we just shift from going down our natural cycle?
right. Yeah, because we tend to, the other thing I used to teach is, how, you're the guy that got rejected, right? You're the salesperson calling. And the person on the other end, I would ask them, I said, well, how long do you think after the phone call that they were thinking about you? Did they go home, or when they met up with their spouse later in the day, did they say, man, you never guessed, somebody called me and I told them no? They don't have that conversation. So then
Nope.
I asked, well, so why are you having that conversation? No, who cares? It's one of the biggest challenges in sales is to teach and learn how to deal with that.
It is. And that's where a lot of our frameworks are built out to give you those avenues to say, okay, so how can you simply make that transition and overcome your natural state within the brain?
So it's optimism, systems, and power. Is that
Power. Yep. And then our fourth one
okay?
is focus.
Focus.
And focus is what allows us to experience top performance. So when we're operating on those
Right.
three, focus negates fear. There is no fear when the focus is clear. So when you have focus, when you have vision, when you have purpose,
Right.
fear cannot exist.
Right.
So as a business owner, you need to know what is the end game, right? What are we striving for? What are we reaching for? What is
Right.
essentially the tenacity behind what I'm doing?
Right.
Because that gives
And
you
what should you be doing?
what should you be doing? Yes, what should you be focusing on? So this goes a lot into our strategic planning, into our goal setting, into our best use of time, our productivity, and the vision of the company, right? And helping all of your employees have focus and understand what values they have. So they have a focus for the day.
Right.
And when you do that, you embody top performance,
Right.
right? Throw this in as a sports analogy. I'll throw it outside of business, these four pillars. You have a, we'll say you look like you probably played a little bit of football, Rob. What position did you play?
Actually, I played hockey. I didn't play football.
You're
I played
hockey,
a little
okay.
bit of football. Yeah, I played hockey a little bit when I was younger. So,
Okay. Were you a forward? Were you a wing?
yeah, I was a forward and a goalie. I was
Okay.
a wing and a goalie, right?
So you got both sides. All right, we'll put you in the penalty shootout, okay,
Okay.
as the goalie. Now, the goalie understands the different positions. So, one, you have to have the correct mindset of I'm going to block this shot,
Right.
right? Without that, you're probably not going to block it
Right.
right off the gate. You have to understand the systems of where you're going to move the body to block each area. The power is going to come from knowing the opponent,
Right.
right? Usually you're going to get that feedback from the coach or the film to say, okay, this is his signature shot. This is the way he's going to move the puck. And then the focus is lining up. I'm going to block this because we're going to win this game, right? You're going to have that laser focus. And you're going to experience that top performance in those moments. Without one of those pillars, you're probably not going to block the shot,
Right.
right? So the same thing kind of goes in life. So we've all experienced top performance. We've all had those days where we feel like we're on
So
top.
focused.
We're
Yeah.
so focused, right? We're so dialed in. We're making calls and boom, 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 everything's lining up, and we're operating in those four pillars.
I want to jump in there real quick on that.
Yeah.
So I heard it from a guy. I was at a conference, and one of the speakers was on oh, time management. And so, and the conference is in Anaheim. So, and it was the first morning thereof. And so what he said was, let me give you time management. He says, I want you to work every day like you did yesterday, because yesterday you're getting ready to go out of town. And when you're getting ready to go out of town, you have a checklist and you are focused and you get it done and nothing interrupts you. Somebody
Yeah.
calls and says, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, or I can't help you right now. I just don't have time right now. And you get this amazing checklist of things done. So that was the best lesson of time management I ever had. Work like you did yesterday.
I love
So
that.
basically work like you did the day before you go out of town.
That's a great advice because it's that focus that really kind of drives that needle to experience those best days where we feel so productive.
Right.
So I like that analogy. I really do. And that actually, when we experience top performance, that's going to lead you to the third complacency model.
Right.
And this is the hardest to spot for individuals. And an
Which means
example I
it's the
can
one
give
we do
you,
the most, right?
it's probably the one we do the most. I'll give you an
Right.
example. I love explaining things to like hiking and camping and all that because top performance literally means summit and to
Right.
do. So you have to do the work to get to the summit. So I always like outdoor analogies. But there's an experience, there's a lot of things a mountain can teach you in life.
Right.
So being on a mountain, there's so many life lessons. There's an experience I had when I was hunting. And yes, I was hunting. So if that offends any listeners, we don't need to hear about it later. Um, and I was sitting on top of the mountain and we were stalking this buck for a few days. We knew exactly where it bed down. We knew exactly where it traveled in the morning to bed down throughout the day. So my buddy and I were positioned directly above the deer's morning feeding, just to our left. We were up on kind of a cliff right above it, and we knew it would pass right in front of us to bed down in trees just to the south. We were muzzleloader hunting, so you have to have a kind of a closer shot. And we would have been lined up perfectly for a little 70-yard shot. My friend's dad was up on the other side of the ridge with the spotter watching the deer, letting us know when its movements were happening. And Rob, I distinctly remember like a literal voice in my head saying, move now and go after the deer. You're going to lose it. And call it what you may. I call it, the spirit, but you can call it conscience or
Intuition.
whatever
Yeah.
kind of you look at. And I just thought, no, like I'm good. I'm good right where I'm at. Deer's going to cross. We're going to get the shot. 5 minutes later, I heard it again, second time. Go after the deer now or you're going to lose it. And I was like, no, like we're in a good spot. Like he's watching the deer, it hasn't even moved yet. It's still early morning. I'm good. And this is the third time this is why I say it's from God is because it quoted scripture from me. It said, all good thoughts come from God. This is a good thought. Go after the deer now.
Right.
And I said, I'm good. I sat there waiting to go. And not 2 minutes later, the wind changed directions and the deer caught scent of some hunters that came into the valley below.
Right.
And it turned and it darted directly up the cliff face. And we lost the deer.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it
you're
taught
not
me
the
a
only guy out
valuable,
there.
yeah, we're not. And it taught me a valuable lesson about the third complacency model. And it's called the self-made complacent. It's the position we get when we say we're good.
Right.
I've made it. I'm right where I need to be. I don't need to progress. I don't need to change. I don't want to do more work.
Right.
And it's the hardest to spot for us because when we feel like we've made it in business, why do we want to change?
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
by
I
doing
mean,
that,
it's
you're
worked
actually
before. Why not? Why want to work today?
correct. Right. I had such a, I can, you know,
Yeah, you broke
feel,
up. You
I,
you faded out again. I don't know what happened.
oh, sorry. I was tying back to your item. I said,
Yeah.
oh, I had such a good day yesterday. I'm good
Right.
today.
Oh
Right.
yeah. That's a big one right there. People have a good
And
day and they celebrate it for a month. It's like get back to work.
exactly. Right. It's because when we experience that top performance, we love kind of that recognition and then we feel like
Sure.
we've made it. But continuous top performance comes by a constant implementation of those four pillars. So it creates this cycle. So in our visual framework, it kind of creates this loop where a top performer seeks out education.
Right.
They seek out new ways to increase their power. That power goes now and applies it back into their systems. Their system causes them to see more successes. They have a better attitude. It drives their focus, and we create this constant cycle. So we're not stuck in this self-made complacent.
Right.
The top performer is the one that gets on the trail every single day and they climb the mountain every single day and they find joy in the
Right.
entire journey.
Rather than a rut. So I heard a rut called a rut is a grave with the ends kicked out. So
I
if
like
you're gonna
that.
get in a rut, just get in the coffin and wait.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's good stuff. I mean, it really is. I mean, we think a lot on the same lines. I mean, obviously we've read similar books and listened to similar speakers and whatnot.
Yep.
You know,
I think that's the
so
beauty of coaching, right? Because
right,
the top performers, the ones that seek out coach, they're listening to these podcasts. They're looking at the books, right? They're looking for that constant improvement. And business principles are the same,
right,
right? They've been around for hundreds of years.
right,
And so I would say we need to find a coach that you love their presentation, right? Coaches that can inspire and invoke new patterns of thinking. Similar to like our three complacency models or the four pillars, everybody knows what complacency is, but it's just how do we forward that thinking more,
right,
right? That's the beauty of coaching and thought leadership is you're taking these principles and you're forwarding the thinking
right,
behind these aspects. So find a coach, right? Find somebody that resonates with you because you need to be on that constant path of progression. That's where you're going to see tremendous growth within your business.
right. Absolutely. And it's always nice to have a coach because I don't know, I think the expression is we don't see the forest through the trees, right? Something like
Yeah.
that. And it's so true because we're so inside of our world that somebody just with a 100-foot view can look at it and go, well, that's wrong, and that's wrong.
Yeah.
But we don't see it because we're in it. And you're in there fighting the day-to-day grind. And that I think the biggest key to success is knowing what moves the needle and focus on that and hire out everything else.
Yep.
Yeah, to me, that's, doing things that don't move the needle. Brian Buffini's another real estate coach. One of the things I liked what he said was customer service is my job, but lead generation is my business. Isn't that a great thought?
That is.
You know, so customer service is my job. In other words, we got to provide customer service, but your business is controlled by your lead generation because it doesn't matter how good you are. If you don't have any clientele, well, then you're not any good. It's that simple.
Yeah. You can't serve anybody if there's nobody to serve.
Right. Right. Doesn't matter how good you are. So, it's yeah. So who would you say is some of your favorite authors?
Some of my
Because
favorite
obviously you're well
authors.
read. You're well read,
Yes, I am. I've read a lot. Some of my favorites, um, ones that stand out to me, if I were to like pick some of my favorite books, you just mentioned customer service, right?
Right.
Customer experience. That one I love, The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. They talk about the customer
Power of moments.
experience, the power of moments. Yep. The difference between customer service and customer experience. Rory Vaden is a fabulous author. I throw him in there because he's my personal business coach.
Say that first one again. The first book again. The
The Power of Moments.
of moments. Yeah.
Yep. Another great author I throw out, Rory Vaden, because he's my personal coach, but he has two fabulous books as well. One's called Take the Stairs. Another one's called Procrastinate on Purpose, How to Multiply Your Time.
Right.
He's a great author. I really like aspects from Daniel H. Pink. I love kind of how he has more of a psychology background to sales and kind of understanding the human behavior behind, selling and timing and those items. Daniel H. Pink is a good author that I love. Some other ones, I mean, Simon Sinek his books are classics.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah. I've read a lot of, I got kind of hooked on Dan Sullivan. So he wrote Who Not How.
Yep.
He's got, God, I can't think of some of the other ones off the top of my head.
He helped with 10X's larger than
Right,
2X.
10X, right.
Dan has a lot. His actual goal was to write 100 books in the next 20 years.
Right.
So he has a lot of
5 books a year. And he's no spring chicken, he's an older guy, and he's like still like he's not thinking about settling down. He's thinking about the next 20 years.
He is.
He may not even be around for 20 years.
An example of a top performer, right? One that is constantly saying, okay, how do I continue to educate myself? Right? The fact that he's written so many books and he's still saying, okay, how can I educate myself? One of his good quotes I love is the author, or a good author, is more of a learner than a teacher.
Right.
And it literally embodies that. Same I would say to business owners. The best business owners are the learners, not the teachers, because they're constantly invoking that vision of their business, right? What is those next things we can grow? What are new avenues I can give better experiences to my employees? What are new things I can give the best experience to my customers, right? They're looking for those feedback. Look at companies that didn't, right? Look at companies that didn't adapt. Blockbuster. Right. They were offered what, like 10 million from
and they were so
Netflix
positioned
for 10 million, or
they were positioned to do it. They already had the market share. They just blew it.
They did, right? They were complacent. They said, okay, well, we're good, right? We're good right where we are, right? They had the opportunity to buy Netflix for like 10 million. And then it was like 5 years later, it was over $1 billion company, and Netflix or Blockbuster was out of business.
It's gone, right?
So it's kind of those same principles. Is how do you have that strategic vision that comes through continually educating yourself, continually, pushing the bounds of new thought, new experiences. And your employees aren't always going to love those new things, right? Because they love that safety. They love, we're already doing this. Why are you having us do something new? But it's that forward thinking that expands your business, and it creates those new experiences for customers. It keeps them coming back.
This guy reminded me of a book. I can't remember it now. Something, The Vision. Oh God, he teaches like a model. It was by, who's the author? His father was a famous coach, and he became the author. Anyway, so he had The Vision something. I could look it up, but I don't want to. It's not a spectator sport for people watching the podcast for me to go look something up. But so they had where you basically have to have your vision for your company, and you hire around it. If you don't get the vision, I mean, if this vision doesn't excite you, you're not a good fit. And I thought that was interesting.
It is. You hire for passion.
Right.
You don't hire for skills.
Are they going to be a good fit?
Skills.
Right.
Or are they going to be a good fit for your vision?
Right. they have to be able to get it, and you have to, so I always thought, God, I know the book. I mean, I can like see the colors of it, and some of the documents, the
Yep.
PDFs you look up. And so, but and he has a template you do that's a 2-page document, and then you break them down into quarters, and you focus on that. Like the book, another book that lends itself to that is the 12-week year. Are you familiar with that
Yes.
one?
Yep.
Yeah, I love that one. Because it's, when you write down a year business plan, and it's late December, you're like, man, you can't even see the other end. So it's hard to get excited about something that it's almost impossible to see. But 12 weeks, you're like, I can get my head around that. And then even though there's 13 weeks in a quarter, then you take the 13th week off to recalibrate, decompress of what you learned, what happened in this 12 weeks, what can we do to improve the next 12, and then you have your next 12-week business plan.
Yep.
Love that.
That is. That's a great aspect to kind of time block those
Yeah,
time periods. Be like, okay, how can we fill this? That's one aspect we do with our clients. We just did our strategic planning, for the year, and we filled up essentially their first 2 months in their calendar,
right,
right? Here's your activities, right? We laid out the action plans of how you're going to get there. And I love kind of breaking, I want to increase sales, I want to hit this many. And I say, okay, that's a building process, right? You say you want to do 60 accounts, which averages, and they always think in averages. They think, oh, that's 5 a month. And I think, well, are you going to be better off 10 months from now than you are today? Well, yeah, I am.
right,
Okay. So that's a progression. So don't look at it as a negative if you don't hit 5 in January. If you
right,
hit 2, you're on pace because you're going to be hitting 8 in December. You're still in the average
right.
of 5, right? So look at that progression as you're building out, your 12 weeks, as you're laying frameworks, you're becoming better, you're creating those processes of hiring employees that's going to duplicate your time and build out your strategic plan in those smaller increments, right?
Right.
And that review, which I love, is hey, now it's next quarter. This is where we're at comparatively, and this is how things have
Right.
adapted.
Yeah, I always taught that, when people would do back to the 1-year business plan, I'm always like, make your first year business plan should be 18 months. Because we always think in the terms of we're up and running today. And if I were up and running and I did everything the way it's supposed to be, yeah, I could do the 5 a month, right? But
Right?
the truth is, we're 6 months away from that.
Yep.
You know? And so it takes 6 months to get it going to the point where now you can do 5 a month, and it's I have to figure out how I incorporate that in the 12-week year.
Yeah.
So
That's a great business principle. I love that.
yeah. Yeah, because we don't, especially people, it depends, like in real estate, the real estate space, mortgage is the same way. I call it the 40-year-old apprentice syndrome. And so typically people that come into the mortgage real estate space, you know, they got their company downsized and now they're going to go get a mortgage license. They're going to come into the space. And now they're a 40-year-old apprentice. When you're 18 and apprentice, you're cool, but there's no way to be cool when you're 40 and an apprentice, right? Because
Yep.
you were accomplished prior, yesterday you were an accomplished professional. Today you're like, you don't know jack crap, and it's like, it's a real challenge to get those people. It's hard to get, sometimes some of them are very coachable and some of them are like, they're just trying to be so cool, you know, not like Joe cool. They're just trying to look competent.
Yeah.
And they don't listen sometimes. It's weird. So anyway, I call it the 40-year-old apprentice syndrome. You were accomplished yesterday, now you're an apprentice. Tough place to be.
Yep. That
So
it is.
yeah,
And that goes back to really their process to say, okay, how do I make the best of this?
right,
How do I increase my power? because when you do step into that new world, people can perceive that. Like you mentioned, it's like, oh man, like I remember experience when I opened an insurance agency and is, the first several months, I remember being asked questions about insurance and I was
Right. That
like,
you don't know.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
And it's that shift where you then have to say, okay, am I willing to put in that sacrifice, right, in those other hours of the day to increase my power,
Right.
right? For my ability to go back and now articulate this and put it back into systems. And that's where I'd say so many business owners fail is because they're not willing to put in short-term sacrifice for long-term gain.
Right. Yep. Yep. And yeah, because we all have this, drive through immediate gratification mentality. The Japanese, they literally write 100-year business plan. It's like, it's hard to get an American to write a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
What's it going to look like in 5 years? And so they're 100-year plan. And so, they're obviously the company's going to live in perpetuity. It's not going to be a small business,
Yep.
unless you have large families, people take over. So
That reminds me of an interview that Tom Watson had about IBM. And he said, he was asked a question, why is IBM so successful? And he said, I had a vision of what IBM would be. And then I asked the question, what would I have to do today to be that business I want to be in 20 years?
right.
And he said, I didn't go to work every day at IBM. I went and worked on the business of IBM.
Right.
I became the business that I wanted to be. So he said, we don't work at IBM, we work on IBM.
Right.
And I kind of love that principle is if you don't know where you're going, how do you change what you're doing today to get there?
Yeah, George Harrison wrote a song on that called "If You Don't Know Where You're Going, Any Road Will Get You There."
Yep.
So, yeah, good line. So, anyway, well, this is good stuff. So, let's see. So the 4 pillars, let's repeat those. So it's optimism, systems, power, and focus. Right?
Yep, that is correct.
And then the complacencies are, if you're not focused, you can get complacent because you're not sure, you just get in your rut. So reiterate the complacency models again.
Yep. So complacently busy.
Busy, that's it. Yeah.
Your natural complacency.
Right.
And your self-made complacent.
Self-made, that's the right. So yeah, busy people, a lot of times people, they get busy and it's kind of, I think a lot of that comes from making a shift from employee to self-employed. I mean, we see that a lot in the mortgage space, right?
Yep.
Or real estate. Because when they had a job, they were just doing things in a bigger picture arena where, somebody had to do it. It had to be done all the time. And so now they're working for themselves and they're not prioritizing the, the jobs that have to be done. And they kind of do busy jobs, and that satisfies their employee mindset that I was productive at work. And the only measure of production is revenue, Now you can measure some of the small things that lead to revenue, like the number of appointments, the number, appointments set, appointments gone on, contracts signed, whatever. I mean, those are good measuring sticks, but they're, but anyway, and they do these tasks. I'm like, unless they're producing, then it wasn't a very good job,
Yeah.
So, same thing in sports, like football. It's like they're like, that was an ugly win. I'm like, yeah, but it was a win. I mean, they won. They figured it out. They got the job done. I don't care how ugly it is. I'm a football fan. So on Monday morning, it's a W, you know?
Right.
So anyway, so let me ask you this, Tyler. Can you think of anything I should have asked that I haven't asked?
On our four pillars, those were pretty spot on. I guess one thing you could have asked Rob is, do I have anything to give your audience?
There you go. So how can people get in touch with you? What can you offer them and how can they get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me. Easiest way is Tyler J. Jensen. That's all of our
Ty-
social handles.
Tyler
Tyler J.
Jensen, E-N,
E-N, yep.
not
Jensen.
Jensen,
Not
Jensen,
Jensen.
right?
Jensen.
So Tyler
TylerJJensen.com.
J Jensen, okay, .com.
And then from there, we actually have a link to a free course that you can take. We have a free course on our website that's going to help you derive your focus. It's our
Sweet.
goal setting master class. It goes into our proprietary STAR goal setting format. That's going to help you break through your expectations and see more joy and success in your goal setting.
Got it. So Tyler J Jensen.com. And right on there, there's a link. It's gold and it says register for a free training. And then if you're a larger company, you want them to come talk, there's an invite Tyler to speak button there as well. And so he's got some credibility buttons there, Primerica, State Farm, PAC Tax, insurance business, so Farm Bureau. So he's been around. So he's got some things going on. So anyway, thank you for reminding me that. I should have, duh. So
You're good, Rob. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. This is podcast Want More Leads. Our great host today, Tyler Jensen, with production. What did I dropped? Top Performance Group. I apologize. Top Performance Group, and where's our guest? And I'm your host, Rob Aubrey. And this podcast is sponsored by Aubrey Home Loans. So thanks for joining us, folks.